Welcome back to the lab, my friends. As you're aware, I'm Bryce Prescott. I'm your host. And before I turned my microphone and my camera on, I've been sitting here in preparation of this episode because I wanted to really reach in and speak to the real you. I had this thing happen not too long ago that I thought I would start this episode off by sharing. And it had to deal with watching the movie Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. Well, Dan Brown's the guy that wrote the book. I want to say Ron Howard might have been the director of that, but it starred Tom Hanks. And it was based in Italy. The main character is Robert Langdon. He's this world-renowned scientist, I guess. He's just a know-it-all, historian, symbologist. He knows all the symbols. And there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where he's in front of this entire class and he's showing these symbols and he's asking what these symbols mean to the crowd, to the class. And, one of them is, it shows this three-forked sort of deal. And somebody said, it was Satan's pitchfork. It's like, actually, no, it's Poseidon. And Poseidon was gives a history of who Poseidon was. And then it showed, the statue of a woman who's pregnant. And they're like, that's the Virgin Mary. It's like, no, it was actually, basically, the whole point of it was that there's all of this symbolism that is in our culture, that's in our history, that just borrows from each other. I remember as well, when I was real deep and heavy into Mormonism, and I was a fully card-carrying member of that church, I would, on a regular basis, go to the temple. And inside of the temple, there was a ton of things that were very symbolic. And the symbolism, there were literal symbols, like things that you would learn about and that meant certain things that were a part of your experience inside of the temple. And as my interest and commitment to being a Mormon faded, I started looking into, well, what does that symbol mean? What does this symbol mean? And it came up that a lot of the stuff that was in the LDS temples was coming from like the Masons, and that Joseph Smith, as the prophet, first prophet of that church, he was a Freemason. And then it just, all of these things just started coming to my mind, seeing all of this basic sort of similarities between everything. We can choose to define something as one thing and believe a story about that one thing, and its history could be nothing of the sort. It could be something that came from something completely different. A lot of our holidays that we consider Christian holidays are basically pagan holidays. They were from an entirely different way of living and way of life. And so as I was thinking about that, and my mind was spinning about, well, what's real then? Like, what is true? It is true, in my opinion, and in my experience, that we can give meaning to things, and then that thing can mean that. And that is an individual experience between us and the thing. There's a lot of speak of that in the whole self-development world, that a part of the problems that we create for ourselves is we give meaning to things based off of somebody else's story that don't need to have meaning, and that if we were to look at things closer, we'd realize that we're just giving away our power and we're leaking energy when we subscribe to that. There's a wonderful book called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by a guy named Vishen Lakhiani. And he talks about something that he calls rules, which are bullshit rules. They are these rules that become imposed upon us by our parents, by religion, by society, to which we don't have to buy into if we don't want to. They actually don't mean anything unless we allow that meaning to mean something. For example, one of the things he talks about is that there has been a rule that your career doesn't matter unless you have a college degree, or that by having a college degree, it some way elevates you in status and success over people that don't. There's speak of that inside of faith as well. As I bring up my own Mormon history, there was a rule that if you served a mission, it somehow made you more righteous or better off than those that didn't. There's all these little things where these rules weren't anything that we were a part of. They just kind of get imposed upon us and we choose them or we don't. So I was also in the same sort of session, if you will, where my mind was wandering. I started looking at the deeper aspects of religion and about how there is a very similar core that floats through all of the world's major religions. And when you get into the people that follow these religions, whether it be Islam or Judaism or Christianity or Hinduism, Buddhism, you have in each one of these religions superfans where people, they bought in and they swear it's the truth, that it's God's will, and they point to the tenets and doctrine of that religion as the answer and the solution to the challenges of their life. They look at the sacred scripture of that religion as a place to become inspired. And by living that, they have created in their mind and experience a testimony that proves to them, well, this is true. Look, I have evidence now. I have applied these things. The evidence shows they work. And that's every major world religion. And then I started thinking about self-development and how there are so many different modalities, especially, for example, in coaching. You know, I was first introduced to the law of attraction in the mid to late 2000s. I read the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And the way that she framed that story of that this was some sort of medieval mystery that has now been found and that the most successful people were the only ones that knew about it. And by passing it along to everybody, now we have access to this law, this eternal truth that when we apply it to our lives, it can give us everything that we want, known as the law of attraction. And I went through a period of time where I really bought into that, where I really did feel like I was a master manifester because of how I applied the law of attraction. And the concepts of the law of attraction of like attracts like, and that you have to know what you want before you can get what you want, and that by surrounding yourself in the way of those things, it allows them to attract themselves to you. And in essence, the law of attraction is that what you focus on expands. Then after that, I started to have some failures in my life. I had some massive successes when I was in that period of time with what I was calling the law of attraction then. I read a book that was called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And that book was followed up by another book called The Science of Getting Rich by a guy named Wallace D. Wattles. And that book was then followed up by Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And then another one called As a Man Thinketh. And there was all these books that basically were giving the power of our mind and our ability to fixate in our thoughts on something, that it was a magnet to create in our external world whatever we wanted. Then I came across something called nihilism, which in essence basically means life means nothing. We're just a bunch of random coincidences here. There's no meaning to any of it unless we give it meaning, and that life kind of sucks. And I saw evidence that nihilism was true because there were certain things I couldn't make sense of. They're just like, well, maybe we're just forcing our own ideas onto this life experience. And because of confirmation bias, we can say anything is exactly what we say it is, and then attach some sort of bias to it based off our experience, saying it's the thing. Maybe that's what we're here. Maybe this is just some convertible ball of rock that's floating through the universe and none of it means nothing. So follow me here. I'm talking about the symbolisms of religion, and then I'm talking about the symbolisms of self-development and the intermingling of religion and self-development, all the way to this place where does it mean anything at all, or is this all meaningless? And then I was introduced to neuro-linguistic programming. And neuro-linguistic programming is something that kind of brings it all together. Neuro is the mind, linguistic, how you communicate, linguistics, programming, the actual programs to which create our behaviors, our identities, and our beliefs and our values. And I'm looking at this entire picture of everything. And I'm deepening that sort of pursuit with things like biohacking and things like the grind culture, cold plunges, peptides now, having your hormones checked. The combination between what's going on in your mind and your mindset and how you look at things and the filter and programs to which you see the world and take action in that world. And then, of course, your meat puppet, your actual physical body, and how your physical body handles itself and how it's optimized, and the connection between your physical body and what's going on in your mind. And quite frankly, as I got to the bottom of this rabbit hole, I just kind of got pissed and I got frustrated and I didn't have any answers. Because it seemed like the only common theme that made any sort of result happen in any of these pursuits or areas of focus, whether it's religion or self-development or mindset or law of attraction, NLP, grind culture, whatever it is belief. The power that is given into any of those thoughts or ideas is if I believe them to be true. If I believe the law of attraction is real and I put all my weight onto it and I do the things that it says and it ends up bringing me a result that allows me the confirmation bias to appoint the law of attraction as the reason for it happening, then in my mind and in my physical world experience, that works. Law of attraction's real, man. And honestly, I have evidence and proof in my own world that that does work. Same with NLP. I've had experiences where I've had literal exercises, walked through things where I've removed negative emotion. There's a concept and an exercise called the resolution formula. And it is where you basically go back and you remember through a meditative state, a hypnotic state, the first time you experienced a specific negative emotion. And then in this meditative state, you look at the aspects of that experience to which you felt that negative emotion for the first time, and you give it context, and it allows you to quite literally rip through time and space an entirely new definition of what that moment meant, completely changing your past and changing your current reality. And I've had experiences where that worked too. Now, my whole point of bringing this is that I want to connect with you on this episode about how confusing it is to figure out what to do. That's pretty much it. As I look around and the different people that I work with in the lab, which is my group coaching experience, my one-on-one clients, the podcasting consulting that I do, and the managing of those shows that I do, I see this common theme. I see that the people that are the most successful in the things that they do, they aren't necessarily the hardest workers. They're the ones that believe the hardest, that have the most delusional thoughts in a beneficial way towards what they think is real and true. It's an interesting thing to witness because when you talk to somebody and they just have this energy like, no, man, it's going to work out. It works out. It's already worked out. I know it's going to work out. And they live their life in that way. It ends up working out. And it's a phenomenon to see because I have found in my own head, I get in the way. I have had a history in my entire life of ruminating over thoughts and just thinking, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And I recognize that that's not good. There's a wonderful book that calls Don't Believe, it's labeled, Don't Believe Everything You Think. And in that book, he postulates that basically rumination is is the root of misery. When you overthink something, you're just basically making yourself miserable. But thoughts that come to you, inspired ideas, those are beauty. But when you dissect those thoughts like an ant on an anthill, that's when the misery comes in. My whole point in this is that if I can instill in you anything or inspire you towards anything in this moment, it's this. First of all, I want you to know that I understand what you're going through. It's a fucker, man, when you don't know where to put your time and attention. I really identify with the difficulty of this. As someone that grew up religious, I put all that in God's hands. And then when it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, I was told through religion and through spiritual leaders that, it's not time. God's time is better. He knows what is best for you, so he's going to give it to you in the right time. You just have to be patient. And you have to have faith. And that confused me because what is it? Did God empower me to create the life that I want? And then I go about wanting certain things and I put things in motion to get the thing that I want. And then God intervenes and says, nope, not yet. How is that me having any power? That's me basically having training wheels and God's trying to stop me from the thing that I want because I'm not ready for it. I've always had a hard time believing that. And whether it be that or whether it be that I go into the self-development realm and I do the things like, for example, in NLP, there's all these thought exercises and things that you can do to really focus and drill down onto the programs that are limiting your success and things that hold you back and the things that are key obstacles to remove so that you can actually have a more fluid and easier time creating your best life. And it starts by knowing what that is. You have to know the things you want in your life, the experiences you want, the material items, the relationships. You have to have gone through the work of designing that and picking out those tiles and carpets, so to speak, in the life that you're building for yourself. And so as I go through that, and then it doesn't work as well as I want it to, and there's an obstacle that shows up that doesn't give me what I want, then I have to have the same sort of conversation with myself. Well, what is it? Same with the law of attraction. Same with all the other stuff. There comes a point where it doesn't ever feel perfect. Like all of these things that we're taught, they're not truly flushed out yet. In very deep moments of meditation, when I've asked myself, what is it that I want the most? What I want the most is I want to know how it all works. Unequivocally, I want to know how it works. Is the law of attraction real, or is it just partly there and we kind of use the part that works, but it's not everything we think it is? Is NLP the same way? Is religion and God and prayer and spirit, is that the same thing, but it's just not all cooked in and we don't know the whole side of it? I am exhausted at the idea that God will give you 9 truths and that 10th one you just have to wait for. I don't understand the purpose of that because I just don't. I could go down and share why I think God might think that's good or why there might be reason behind it, but it just seems to elongate the process. And as somebody that has experienced far more learnings from my wins than I have my losses, I don't want to lose more. I want to win more. And so as I share all these things outwardly to you, I want you to know you're not alone and just wonder, well, what the hell is it, man? Do I need to hire that coach or do I not need to hire that coach? What's really going on in my mind and heart? I keep feeling like I should go back to church, but I don't want to go to that church. But every time I start talking about Christ or Jesus or any of the other stuff, I get this sort of thing happening and nothing ever feels like it's pulling you in the exact right direction. What do I do? If you've had that thought, I'm with you, man. It's not for the faint of heart to be actively in pursuit of truth. One of the things that happens when we become active in the pursuit of truth is we have to be willing to be wrong. We have to be willing to understand that the things to which I've given priority and the things to which I've allowed govern my choices and thoughts might be something that I've either outgrown or was never for me in the first place, even though I chose to do it. That'll mess with your mind if you're not careful. And I've had many of those moments where I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. And I was attracted to certainty. I would find myself hiring help, whether it be coaches or consultants, based off of their certainty. That if they seemed to have had it figured out, that meant something to me. I wanted a piece of that certainty. I wanted that certainty for myself. And the irony of all of this is that I don't, still to this day, 50 years old, have not arrived at a place where I feel I know everything. For example, it's an interesting experience. I have these one-on-one clients in the coaching space. And every single one of them that I've worked with has been a different experience. Because we get into the coaching environment with one idea of what really needs to change, what the desires of their heart are to change. And as I start to dig in with them and learn them and get to know what their real challenges and struggles are, inevitably, the real root shows up. The real issue manifests itself, and we get to then focus on that so we can untangle it. And most of the time, almost every time, it's something really, really simple, but right there in their face. Right there in the place where it's just something they just didn't want to acknowledge, but yet it was there and it didn't matter that it was there. It just was going to be a bugger until it wasn't. And because of their beliefs and their symbolism and the things to which they had allowed to be these rules, these bullshit rules, they would never address that thing. until now. And so as I'm here on this episode and talking this through myself and sharing this with you, I want you to feel okay knowing that it's a confusing effort. And I want to instill in you this, that the biggest piece that will elicit transformation for you in your life is belief. It's when you can believe in your heart that it's going to work, that you can believe in your heart that it worked out, that you get what you wanted, that you're loved and worthy of love. Whatever it is that's popping up in your mind right now, that thing that you wish and hope for, it's your belief that is stopping you from experiencing that right now, whatever it is. Because when you get to that place of belief, everything starts to sort itself out. I've started to kind of come to this conclusion. I used to be that none of the religions are right. None of the self-development modalities are correct. It's just all happenstance. Effort gets you there, and it's hard work. And there's going to come a point where you realize that, and it's fine. And you just distracted yourself with something to kind of give yourself structure, whether it's NLP or law of attraction or whatever the coaching modality is, whatever. I used to think it was none of them. And I don't anymore. I've come to the conclusion that it's all of them. It's all of them. You just get to be more specific and more deliberate in your belief. And when you are experiencing a lack of belief, or when you're experiencing doubt, that you look at that doubt. And when you experience and know where it's coming from, you then fix it. And that doubt then will transition into, beyond faith, it will become knowledge. It's kind of a crazy thing when you look at that, because, I don't want to get cute about any of this, but it really is that simple. Whatever you're doing right now that's kind of working, do more of that and believe it's going to work out. And if you find yourself not enjoying that thing, pivot. Try something different. You're not bound to have to stay in the same mind or mind frame or belief structure your entire life. That's actually one of the best signs that you care and love yourself, is that you are willing to look at what's not working and transition into something and to try something different. Belief is actually, I want to break this down pretty carefully. It's not delusional. It's just, belief is energetic coherence. Like everything is, it just sticks, it's coherent, it works, and there's a supercharge to that. Energetically, it works. And what it does when you finally start to experience that sense of belief is you stop hedging. You then are willing to go all in. There's that phrase that says, burn the boats. A lot of people think that the mechanism of burning the boats is how you get yourself to believe, because you're stuck at that point. Like, I don't have any exit doors here. I'm out at sea. There's no way back. I got to do this. Now, that's chicken or the egg at that point. It's like they both matter. But the whole point is that when you stop mentally dancing with the other stuff, that's when things start to work out and become more and more clear. One of the lessons I've said on this podcast several times is that clarity comes from momentum, not the other way around. Momentum doesn't come from clarity. It's clarity that comes from momentum. So that means you have to be in motion, going somewhere energetically for you to be able to experience a sense of clarity in your mind. And that's why religion will work for the people who believe it. That's why sales, you're a way better salesperson if you believe you're going to close the sale. You want to manifest something? How are you going to manifest something if you don't believe it's going to show up? And it even gets down to the simpler stuff. Like, why would anybody work hard, put themselves through the effort of late nights and early mornings and stress if they didn't believe it had a purpose that would work. Now, here's where it gets fun, because we can encapsulate the last 20 some odd minutes of my talking into one sentence that says it all. And it's this: it doesn't matter what system you choose to be a part of. You, as the operator, are the one that dictate if it works or not. I want you to consider that. We've been told through self-development, through religion, through so many voices, that our lives are up to us. Nobody can do the work for us. We have to do the work ourselves. It is an operator issue, not a system issue. No matter the system, you can thrive in it if you play by the rules of the system. And the beautiful part is that you can even create a system based off of your rules, provided you believe it sufficiently to work. Now, when you get cute and when you mess that up is when you try to act like that's what you think and feel, but you're not really in it. You don't ever go all in. You have to think more. You consider gathering more information as the option, as opposed to just going. And that's just a fancy way of stalling. That's an intellectually acceptable way of not doing the work. I got to get more information. And all of those things you're never going to get anything extraordinary out of that. You're never going to have results that you're proud of, because you're going to be in this constant loop of thinking and acting, and it didn't work, and I got to rethink it, and I got to act. And well, it kind of worked, but it's just this ebb and flow back and forth. And it's not even about being right. It's about being aligned. Because I can tell you this, in spite of my entire diatribe of doubt and confusion, I know the things that work for me. And I know that if I was to lean further into those things that work for me, they would work better for me. And I would get closer to the thing that I want. But again, like I said, in order to do that, there's all these different parts that have to happen. And it's nerve-wracking when you do this. That's why your nervous system is going to have to adjust. And that's why you have to do things like cold plunges and have your hormones checked and take care of your bodies, because your body is the way that this thing gets housed. You're doing all these different thoughts and actions inside of your mind and heart. Your body's the mechanism that creates it. It actually does the motion. And so if your body is not willing to handle what it would be like for you to have everything you want, it will sabotage you. I want you to think about this as an example. There's a concept that says mind over matter, which I believe in a lot of ways. But I want to illustrate and address that your matter matters too. Your body matters. Your body and how healthy it is makes a huge difference in your ability to handle your own success. Your mind and your mindset they're completely powerful and required to be the one at the helm. But if your body is not on point, it will sabotage you. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for the sake of our discussion here, that you commit to running a marathon. And so you go through the process of training for that marathon, the regimen, the eating, you're preparing for that. And about a week out from the marathon, let's say you really, really sprain your ankle. The day of the marathon comes and you have a choice. Technically speaking, you can still run that marathon, but your body will be shooting all sorts of chemicals and hormones, putting you in shock, trying to stop you. You actually can outrun that part of your body. That injury, you can damage yourself further by continuing to run, by going mind over matter. But your body will do everything to try to slow you down. And so let's say that it does. It slows you down. What was the reason it slowed you down? Was it because your mindset wasn't strong enough? Or was it because your body mattered and you needed to care for that too? The answer to that question is ironically irrelevant because the answer is both. But that's why in all of this, belief is housed in your chest. It's housed in your body. When you believe something, you can feel it. The energy of the moment makes it easier for you to go forward. And as simple as it sounds, you have all of the control over your belief. Now, when doubt creeps in, that doubt in no way means your belief isn't valid. Doubt is a mechanism of your nervous system getting in play, trying to keep you comfortable, trying to keep you at your status quo, reminding you how easy it's been here even when you're miserable. Because the adjustment into that new place would deem some of those programs inside your mind and some of the issues in your nervous system would deem them unneeded. And they can't have that. So what I want you to do as we wrap this up is I want you to draw a line in the sand for yourself. I want you just to pick one. Pick one of the things to which you've given time and attention to. Maybe it's the concept that life is a mirror. Maybe it's the concept of NLP. Maybe it's the law of attraction. Maybe it's you're just a big Jesus fan and you want to go all in on Christianity. Maybe it's none of those things and it's something else to which really fires you up. But what I want you to do is I want you to pick one. And I want you to run with it. Have it become your operating system. Have it become the thing to which you are committed to and execute in that world. Follow the rules of that doctrine, whatever it is. And you don't have to do this forever, but I want you to do it deliberately and fully until you don't. This will allow you the relief of not having to be the smartest guy in the room, to think about every angle and option, and you can just let it go and you can just tell your fear to go fuck off and you just buy in. Because this is how you become aligned. It's the combination of these forces where you're committed, you have a strategy, and you have a force and a fuel behind that commitment strategy to go towards it. That will keep you aligned. So stop getting cute and start being aligned. You know, I think that's good enough for today. I really hope that you take this serious because I'm going to. I realize as I've talked this out to you, this is a big part of the challenges that I've experienced. I'm a very high achieving person. I've had a lot of really cool things happen in my life, but at the same time, I've dealt with a lot of doubt, a lot of fear and wonderment and self-judgment and all of that. And my choice and commitment is to run with it. Not the doubt, but the belief that it does work out, the belief that I am okay, the belief that my best days are ahead of me, not behind me. And I encourage you to take that same thing with you, wherever and whatever it is you choose to fully commit to. Anyway, my friends, I do need to make this announcement. As you've heard before on past episodes, I have my weekly coaching experience called The Lab. If you wanted to check out what that is and see if you would be a fit for us there, just go to bryceprescott.com and there's a deal right there where you can click on it to try out The Lab. Or the full URL is bryceprescott.com/thelabgroup. There's a whole process there. But we did change the date. It was on Tuesdays in the morning. We've changed it to Wednesdays, and it's going to be on Wednesday for the foreseeable future. If you found any connection to my message today, I can say with certainty, you would thrive in the lab, and it would give you the community and the support that you need. And so do that. Go to bryceprescott.com, click on the deal about the lab coaching group, see if it's a fit. My friends, I don't say this lightly, and I do mean it. I love you all. I wish you nothing but the best. I want you to find success in your life, and I want you to experience the highest of highs. And what we've shared today is that the only way to do that is if you are dialed in and you fully believe that you can. So, like I always say, until next time, Take it a day at a time. I'll see you.